We live in a culture where we romanticize dysfunction and then call it love. We write songs about it. We build movies around it. We even post quotes on Instagram about it. And the scary thing is most of us don't even know when we're celebrating something toxic. The truth is not every habit that looks like love is actually love. Some of the things we normalize are slowly suffocating intimacy, robbing us of trust, and leaving us lonelier than ever, even while lying next to someone. So today I want to talk about 7 toxic habits that masquerade as normal love. My goal isn't to shame us, it's to shine a light, because when we can name it, we can change it. Let's walk through 6 big insights you'll need to carry with you. And I promise by the end, you'll never look at relationships the same way again. We often confuse care with control, and it's one of the most dangerous illusions we face in relationships. Think about it. How many times have we heard or even said, I'm just checking on you because I care, when the truth was deep down, it was about easing our own anxiety, not about honoring the other person's freedom. It can sound so innocent. Text me when you get there. Don't wear that. People will look at you. I don't want you going out with those friends. These sentences carry the tone of love on the surface, but underneath them lies fear, insecurity, and the need to keep someone under control. And when we confuse that for love, we start shrinking in relationships without even realizing it. Control always starts quietly. Imagine this. A woman is getting ready for a dinner with her friends. She picks out her favorite dress. She feels alive, confident, beautiful. But then her partner says, "Why are you wearing that? Who are you trying to impress?" Suddenly, she doubts herself. She changes into something less flattering, less bold, less her. And here's the heartbreaking part. He might even believe he said it because he cares, because he wants to protect her. But what he's actually doing is controlling her expression of self. Over time, she loses pieces of who she is, mistaking that surrender for love when in reality it's fear disguised as devotion. The same happens with constant check-ins. At first, it feels nice. Someone wants to know where you are, if you're safe. But then the texts multiply. Who are you with? Why didn't you answer? What took you so long? Send me a picture. Well, looks like care turns into surveillance. And here's the thing, love doesn't require a tracking device. Love doesn't keep a ledger of every move. Love trusts. Love gives space. Care says, I want you to be safe. Control says, I don't feel safe unless I know everything you're doing. The difference may sound subtle, but the impact is enormous. We've normalized control because we're afraid of loss. We think if we can manage someone's choices, we can keep them close, keep them loyal, keep them ours. But the truth is, control doesn't create closeness. It creates distance. People who are controlled eventually hide parts of their lives, not because they want to deceive, but because they want to breathe. They start keeping secrets, not out of betrayal, but out of survival. And in that space, intimacy dies. Real care looks very different. Real care is when your partner says, text me when you get there, not because I don't trust you, but because I want to sleep better knowing you're safe. Real care is when your loved one says, wear what makes you feel alive, because when you shine, it lights up the room. Real care is about protecting the other person's well, being without suffocating their freedom. And let's be honest, it takes courage to love like that. It takes courage to say, I trust you enough to live your life without me micromanaging it. It takes courage to sit with our own insecurities instead of projecting them onto someone else. It takes courage to understand that love is not about ownership. Love is not about possession. Love is about partnership. Here's a story. A friend of mine once told me that when she got married, she stopped traveling with her girlfriends because her husband always questioned her about where she was going, who she was with, why she wanted to leave him behind. At first, she gave in thinking this is what married life is. This is what commitment looks like. But after a few years, she realized she wasn't smiling the way she used to. She wasn't laughing the way she used to. Her friendships had faded. Her world had gotten smaller. And her husband kept calling it love. What she finally understood was this love expands your world. Control shrinks it. Think about parenting for a second. If you raise your child by controlling every move they make, you don't raise a confident, free adult. You raise a fearful one who struggles to trust themselves. The same is true in relationships. When we smother people with control, we don't create love, we create fear-based obedience. And love can't survive in fear. So the next time someone says, I'm just saying this because I care, pause and ask, is it really care or is it control? Care empowers, control disempowers. Care is rooted in trust. Control is rooted in fear. Care creates connection. Control creates resentment. And here's the most important part. We don't just do this to others. We often accept it for ourselves. Sometimes we call it love when deep down we know it's control. And we allow it because we're afraid of losing the relationship. We're afraid of being alone. We're afraid of conflict. But slowly, piece by piece, we lose ourselves instead. The truth is, we cannot build real love on the foundation of control. Real love is freedom, trust, respect, and choice. It's saying, I care about you, but I don't need to clip your wings to prove it. It's standing beside someone, not standing over them. It's supporting someone without suffocating them. And I'll leave you with this. If someone truly loves you, they won't need to control you. They'll love you enough to let you be you. Because love doesn't shrink you. It allows you to expand. We've all heard it before. He's jealous because he loves you. It's painted as something romantic, even passionate. Movies show couples fighting out of jealousy, then kissing like their whole world depends on it. Music lyrics tell us that if someone isn't jealous, they must not care enough. And so somewhere along the way, we started believing that jealousy is proof of love. But let's stop for a second and be honest. Jealousy isn't passion. It's insecurity dressed up in dramatic colors. And when we mistake jealousy for love, we start normalizing behaviors that actually erode trust instead of building it. Think about it. How many times have you heard someone say, I don't like when you talk to him. It makes me jealous. Or don't wear that because people will stare at you. And it drives me crazy. At first, it feels like passion. It feels like, wow, this person must love me so much that they can't stand the thought of losing me. But slowly, what seemed flattering begins to feel suffocating. It starts with small restrictions. Don't talk to this person. Don't wear that outfit. Don't go to that place. And soon, you realize your life has become smaller, all under the disguise of love. The reality is jealousy comes from fear, not love. It's the fear of not being enough, the fear of being replaced, the fear that someone else could take the place you hold in someone's life. And when fear is the foundation, passion may burn brightly for a while, but it never builds the kind of steady warmth that true love needs. Let me give you an example. A young couple is out at a restaurant. The waitress smiles politely at the boyfriend while taking their order. His girlfriend notices and immediately goes cold. The rest of the dinner is tense, and when they get in the car, she explodes. I saw how she looked at you. Don't act like you didn't notice. He insists he didn't flirt, but she's convinced. This isn't passion. This is jealousy creating a false story. And here's the thing, over time, those false stories pile up until both people are exhausted, always defending themselves instead of enjoying each other. Another story, a man refuses to let his wife post pictures on social media because he doesn't want other men looking at her. At first, she gives in, thinking it's just social media, no big deal. But after a while, she starts feeling invisible. She feels erased, as if she can't exist fully in the world without his permission. This isn't protection. This isn't passion. It's control rooted in jealousy, and it leaves her feeling more like property than a partner. Now, don't get me wrong. Jealousy is a human emotion. We all feel it. The problem is when we glorify it, when we turn it into the standard for passion. The truth is, jealousy doesn't strengthen love, it strangles it. It makes people afraid to shine, afraid to connect with others, afraid to live freely. Real love, on the other hand, doesn't shrink when someone else notices your worth. It celebrates it. Imagine being in a relationship where your partner says, of course people notice you. You're amazing, you're beautiful, you're magnetic, and I'm proud that I get to share life with you. That's passion without jealousy. That's confidence instead of insecurity. That's love that doesn't collapse when it feels threatened, but expands when it sees you shine. When we confuse jealousy for passion, we start craving the drama. We start thinking that the yelling, the suspicion, the possessiveness, that's what love is supposed to feel like. But real passion isn't chaos. Real passion is when you feel fully alive, fully seen, and fully free, all while deeply connected to the other person. It's when your heart races, not because you're scared of losing them, but because you're excited to be with them. Here's something to think about. Passion without jealousy is actually stronger, not weaker. It's easy to cling out of fear. It's harder, braver, and more beautiful to trust out of love. Passion rooted in jealousy says, I want to lock you down so no one else can have you. Passion rooted in love says, I want to see you soar, and I'll cheer you on while you do it. So let's stop romanticizing jealousy. Let's stop writing songs and stories that tell us that the green-eyed monster is a sign of devotion. Devotion doesn't demand possession. It doesn't resent attention. It doesn't punish you for being radiant in the world. Every time jealousy whispers, if they really loved me, they wouldn't look at anyone else. Love responds, if they really loved me, they'd trust me even when the world notices my worth. Every time jealousy says, you need to control them to keep them. Love says, you need to free them to truly keep them. Real passion isn't about tightening your grip. It's about opening your hand. Because the kind of love that lasts doesn't fear being replaced. It knows its place. And the kind of passion that inspires doesn't come from insecurity. It comes from trust, respect, and freedom. So the next time someone tells you jealousy is a sign of love, remember this jealousy masquerades as passion. But passion that's built on fear will always collapse. Real love, real passion is strong enough to celebrate, not control. It's courageous enough to trust, not restrict. And it's wise enough to know that the person you love most is never yours to own, but yours to honor. We often grow up hearing that love is sacrifice. It's written into our fairy tales, whispered in our families, embedded in the vows of weddings. And while sacrifice has a place in relationships, somewhere along the way, we confused devotion with erasing ourselves. We started believing that giving up our dreams, our joy, even our identity was the highest proof of love. But the truth is, real devotion doesn't ask us to disappear. It asks us to show up as our whole selves. There's a difference between sacrifice that's freely chosen and sacrifice that's demanded. One is rooted in love, the other in control. Imagine a woman who dreams of pursuing her art, but her partner tells her, if you really loved me, you'd stop wasting time on that and focus on us. Out of fear of losing him, she abandons her paints, her canvases, the part of her that feels most alive. He calls it devotion. She calls it compromise. But deep down, it's a slow surrender of who she is. That's not devotion. That's disappearance. Or think of the man who's passionate about traveling, experiencing the world, and meeting new people. But his partner insists, why do you need that? Isn't being with me enough? Slowly, he lets go of his adventures, convinced that settling down is what love requires. At first, it looks like commitment, but over time, it feels like confinement. His devotion is measured by how much of himself he gives up, until one day he looks in the mirror and no longer recognizes who he is. True love doesn't ask us to trade ourselves in for approval. True love doesn't say, shrink so I can feel bigger. It doesn't say, erase that part of yourself so I can feel secure. Real devotion is not about cutting away pieces of our soul. It's about holding space for two whole people to exist side by side without either having to vanish. Sacrifice can be beautiful when it's mutual and when it comes from choice. A parent staying up all night with a sick child, that's sacrifice born from love. A partner working overtime to help build a shared dream, that's devotion in action. But when sacrifice is lopsided, when one person is always giving up their voice, their joy, their community, while the other only takes, it stops being love and starts being a transaction. We often accept this disguised version of love because we've been told that selflessness is the ultimate virtue. And while generosity is essential in relationships, there's a line between generosity and self-erasure. It's possible to be so focused on keeping the peace, on keeping someone happy, that you lose your own peace entirely. And the tragedy is when you lose yourself, the relationship doesn't grow stronger. It grows more fragile because it's built on the silence of one and the comfort of the other. Here's the thing, devotion is not about proving your love by how much you give up. It's about proving your love by how much of yourself you're willing to bring. It's about saying, I choose to share my dreams with you, not bury them. I choose to live fully beside you, not quietly underneath you. Let's take an everyday example. Imagine someone who loves to sing. It's their joy, their outlet, their way of expressing life. But their partner rolls their eyes whenever they sing, saying it's annoying or unnecessary. Slowly they stop. At first, it seems small, but piece by piece, they dim their own light. And what's left is not love. It's silence that wears the mask of devotion. Now imagine if instead their partner encouraged them or sing, even if it's off key, because it makes you happy. And when you're happy, I love being near you. That's the difference between demanded sacrifice and chosen support. The healthiest relationships are not built on a tally of sacrifices, but on mutual respect for each person's wholeness. Real devotion says, I love you enough to want all of you, the loud, the messy, the passionate, the inconvenient. It says, I don't need you to cut off parts of yourself to make me comfortable. I'd rather you bring your full self, even if it challenges me. That's not just love, that's courage. Sometimes we believe that if we keep sacrificing, if we keep saying yes while swallowing our no, the other person will love us more. But love built on disappearing is not sustainable. Because eventually resentment replaces devotion. The person who sacrificed too much begins to feel invisible, and the one who demanded the sacrifice starts mistaking silence for loyalty. It's a cycle that doesn't build intimacy, it builds distance. True devotion is not about choosing between yourself and the person you love. It's about choosing both. It's about weaving your lives together without unraveling your individuality. It's about standing side by side, not one behind the other, hidden in the shadows. So the next time someone says, if you love me, you'll give this up, pause. Ask yourself, is this sacrifice leading me to more of myself or less of myself? Does this devotion expand who I am, or does it erase me? Because if love asks you to abandon the very essence of who you are, it's not love, it's a cage. And here's the truth. You don't have to disappear to be loved. The people who truly love you will never require you to shrink. They will want you to bring your whole, vibrant, imperfect self to the table. Because devotion is not proven by how much you give up. It's proven by how much you show up fully, bravely, authentically as you. We've all heard the phrase, I can't live without you. It shows up in love songs, in movies, in poetry, and it sounds beautiful, almost magical, like the truest expression of devotion. But here's the hard truth. If we literally cannot function without someone, that isn't love, it's dependency. And dependency masquerading as closeness can feel intoxicating at first, but over time it steals away freedom, individuality, and ultimately the very intimacy we're trying to hold on to. Dependency feels like closeness because it's intense. When someone clings to you, when they need you for every decision, every emotion, every step forward, it feels like you're the center of their world. It feels flattering to be so needed. But soon that need begins to weigh heavy. You realize that instead of being chosen, you're being leaned on. Instead of being a partner, you're becoming a lifeline. Think of a couple where one person won't go anywhere alone. Grocery store, coffee shop, family gathering. They need their partner by their side, not because they want to share the joy, but because they don't know how to exist independently. At first, it looks like devotion. Would do everything together. But soon it morphs into restriction. The partner who once felt flattered now feels suffocated. What looked like closeness was actually dependency, and what looked like love was actually fear of standing alone. Another example, imagine someone who can't make a decision without their partner's input. Should I take this job? Should I wear this outfit? Should I say yes to this invitation? While seeking advice is natural in relationships, needing constant validation to the point of losing your own voice is dependency. It disguises itself as closeness. We're so in sync. We decide everything together. But in reality, it erases individuality. And when individuality disappears, true intimacy fades too, because there's no longer two whole people connecting. There's just one leaning on the other. Here's the thing. Closeness is about choosing each other, not clinging to each other. Closeness says, I'm complete on my own, but life is richer with you by my side. Dependency says, without you, I'm nothing. And that might sound poetic, but it's actually destructive. Because when our entire sense of self rests on another person, we stop growing, we stop exploring, and we place an impossible weight on the relationship to carry all our identity and purpose. True love allows space. Think of a healthy friendship. You might not talk every day, but when you connect, it feels real, alive, grounded. The distance doesn't weaken the bond. It strengthens it. The same is true in romantic relationships. Space isn't the absence of love. It's proof of trust. It's knowing that even when you're apart, you're still connected. That's closeness built on choice, not dependency built on fear. Dependency often sneaks in disguised as romance. A partner says, I don't want you to go anywhere without me. It sounds sweet, like deep attachment, but what it really says is, I can't stand alone. Another says, I need you to answer me immediately, always. Again, it feels like passion, but it's really anxiety dressed as love. Over time, those small demands pile up until the relationship feels like a partnership and more like a cage. Let's be clear, we all depend on each other in some ways. That's human. We lean on friends for comfort. We count on family for support. We need partners for encouragement. But there's a world of difference between healthy interdependence and unhealthy dependency. Interdependence says, I can stand, but it feels better to hold your hand while I do. Dependency says, I can't stand at all unless you hold me up. The danger of dependency is that it creates fear of separation, fear of growth, fear of change. A person who is dependent will often resist their partner evolving because if the partner grows, they might outgrow them. So they subtly discourage change. Why are you taking that class? You don't need it. Why do you want to hang out with those people? Just stay with me. At first, it sounds like a desire for closeness, but really it's fear of being left behind. True closeness, on the other hand, celebrates growth. It says, take that class, meet those people, try that new thing. And when you come back, I can't wait to hear about it. It trusts that distance won't destroy the bond. It understands that when two people keep growing individually, their relationship becomes richer, not weaker. Think of two trees planted side by side. If they lean too hard on each other, they stunt each other's growth. But if they grow tall and strong on their own, their branches eventually intertwine, creating a canopy of shade and beauty. That's what love looks like when it's not tangled in dependency. So many people mistake dependency for intimacy because they've been taught that needing someone completely is romantic. But intimacy isn't about need. It's about vulnerability, honesty, choice. It's about saying, don't need you to survive, but I choose you because life is better when you're in it. That's a far more powerful declaration of love than I can't live without you, because one comes from fear and the other comes from freedom. Here's the truth. Dependency feels like closeness at first, but over time it robs both people of air. Closeness, real closeness, allows both to breathe, both to grow, both to thrive. And when you can stand on your own 2 feet and still reach out your hand to say, walk with me, that's when love becomes its most beautiful. We live in a world that constantly praises honesty. Just tell it like it is, we say. I'm just being real, people insist. And honesty is vital. Without it, no relationship can survive. But there's a fine line we often cross without realizing it. The line where honesty becomes cruelty and cruelty pretends to be love. We've all felt it. That sting when someone says something hurtful, then adds, don't take it personally, I'm just being honest. As if honesty is a free pass to wound. But let's be clear, real love doesn't use honesty as a weapon. Real love uses honesty as a bridge. Criticism often dresses up as honesty in relationships. A partner points out every flaw, every mistake, every imperfection, and then calls it helping you improve. On the surface, it seems like care. Who doesn't want someone who pushes them to be better? But in reality, constant criticism chips away at self-worth. It makes the other person feel like they're or never enough, no matter how hard they try. And instead of inspiring growth, it builds resentment and shame. Take this everyday example. A woman cooks dinner for her partner. She's excited. She's tried a new recipe. He takes a bite and says, "It's okay, but you put too much salt. Why don't you ever follow directions properly?" Now, technically, he's being honest, but was it necessary to phrase it that way? Could he have said instead, "I love that you tried something new. Maybe a little less salt next time, but it's delicious." The first version tears her down. The second one supports her while still being truthful. That's the difference between criticism disguised as honesty and honesty rooted in love. Another story, imagine a man who gets dressed for a party. He feels confident, wearing something bold, something that makes him feel alive. His partner looks at him and says, "That shirt makes you look ridiculous." Again, just being honest. But the truth is, comments like that don't build closeness. They build insecurity. Over time, he'll stop expressing himself, stop wearing what he likes, stop feeling comfortable being fully seen. That's not love speaking. It's judgment. We often normalize this by saying, "That's just how I am. I'm blunt. I say what I think." But bluntness without kindness isn't strength. It's laziness. It takes no effort to tear someone down with the truth. What takes courage, what takes intention, is speaking truth in a way that uplifts instead of destroys. Criticism disguised as honesty usually comes from a place of control. When we constantly point out someone's flaws, what we're really saying is, "You're not enough the way you are. You need to change to fit my standard." And love, true love, is never about remolding someone to fit our preferences. It's about celebrating who they are while gently encouraging their growth in a way that makes them feel supported, not shamed. Think of a garden. If you see a flower drooping, you don't scream at it, "Why aren't you standing tall? You look weak." That's honesty technically, but it's not helpful. Instead, you water it, you make sure it gets sunlight, you nurture it. That's honesty with kindness. That's truth that heals instead of harms. People are no different. We don't grow from being cut down. We grow from being encouraged. Some people stay in relationships where criticism is constant because they believe it's honesty, and honesty means love. But if you're always walking on eggshells, waiting for the next comment about your flaws, you're not experiencing love. You're enduring erosion. Slowly, your confidence, your joy, your uniqueness gets chipped away until you're a smaller version of yourself. That's not the fruit of love. That's the cost of criticism. Real honesty in love looks different. It's saying, "I see this weakness, but I also see your strength." It's saying, "Here's where I think you could grow, but I believe in you and I'm here to support you." It's saying, "I'll tell you the truth, but I'll wrap it in grace so it builds you instead of breaking you." Let's picture another simple scene. A couple is out with friends, and one of them tells a story that doesn't quite land. On the way home, their partner says, "You always talk too much. You should really stop embarrassing yourself like that." Brutally honest, but how does it feel? Crushing. Now imagine if instead the partner said, "I loved how enthusiastic you were tonight. You light up a room. Maybe next time let others chime in too. But honestly, I love how much energy you bring." Both are honest. Only one is loving. The words we choose matter. Honesty without compassion becomes cruelty. Criticism without care becomes corrosion. And when we hide behind, "I'm just being honest," we absolve ourselves of responsibility for the damage our words cause. But true love takes responsibility. It recognizes that words can either be bricks that build or hammers that break. And here's the truth. Love doesn't ask us to lie, but it does ask us to be gentle. It asks us to recognize the weight our words carry and to use them wisely. Love doesn't mean avoiding hard truths. It means delivering them in a way that protects dignity. Because at the end of the day, honesty that doesn't honor is not love. So the next time someone justifies harshness by saying they're being honest, pause and ask yourself, does this honesty build me or does it break me? Does it feel like love or does it feel like judgment? And when it's your turn to be honest, ask yourself, will my truth heal or will it harm? Because the difference between criticism and honesty is not what you say, but how you say it. The relationships that last are the ones where truth is spoken, yes, but always with kindness, always with respect, always with the intention to lift, not to crush. And when honesty is infused with love, it doesn't leave scars, it leaves growth.